In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lecture. All right, let's dive into it. So, dear listeners, welcome to another evening of listening to one member, 1 out of 8 billion human beings, share with you what his findings are. To be honest, the way I see it for myself, the way I, smile at the game of this life is that I say, all right, man, I'm in a position to report back to the species. This is what the true value of cyberspace, the honest feedback and development of the nervous system of the species. Hilariously, all nations are like these small robots that need to merge and become this giant robot, and the true, flag of the species, a flag with the DNA symbol on it. We want to advance in this reality. That's the aim of every being here. On some level, personal stories don't matter. The depth of it is, it's like too deep. It's like the task at hand. Like every human being has their own personal preferences based on their past self, but right now in the present, you occupy a role. ROLE. What is the responsibility of your human design existing on Earth now? Truly, we have to wonder about the greatness, the advancement of the species, how, in some sense, poetically, in, old school thoughts, ships sailed, like, these ships on the water sailed into the sky, and in some sense, kings envisioned kingdoms in the clouds. You see, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of every day of this reality, it is all about what happened to the human species. I am telling you, if somebody says, Mr. Within, are you saying the human species is more important than the self? And I will be like, believe it or not, once you've solved the problems of yourself, once you have found solutions to the problems of your own self being, you in some sense realize there are bigger problems. Sometimes it's very difficult to know who to help in reality. For me, I'm that human being at a very incredible time. It's not like battle, like I can't be like Legolas from Lord of the Rings and go kind of like take down a unrealistically large mammoth. Do you know what I mean? So do you know, it's like I'm not back in the day, like, even though a part of my youthful mind had this vision that if I was alive back in the day, what weapon I would use to fight. It's like wondering about, does the same honor for fighting for a greater value currently exist on planet Earth for humans? And I am telling you, this is the scenario. You're watching, what you're witnessing, any person alive in 2025. What you're witnessing right now is a moment in history where the human species is slowly realizing their ancestors made up a story to kind of be able to live through the chaos of surviving every day. And now the species is waking up and being like, no way, man. At some point you kind of blame the past for what's wrong, but then you look at them and they're like, yo, man, those guys did whatever they could to get us here. The honor of the past is that you look at the past. Like for me, the arrival of my soul feels like the arrival of my soul in this world. I was born 1991. And you know how it feels to me? It feels like the moment my soul arrived consciously in this realm, I looked at the past and I was like, be at peace, for it's no longer in your hands. And I would honor the past. I would, in some sense, tell them to rest. That's the whole point of new souls entering the system. They're not here to just be in their own worlds. They're here in some sense to lift up the species from the self-savageness of ignorance. It's as if like you're not thinking about like, yo, man, do I deserve a second chance? You're thinking about, does your species deserve a second chance? If somebody tells me what kind of climate are we in, I'll be like, if you're asking a soul, the current climate is that you're being 8 billion beings, the species, its behavior, its conduct, its input into this world is very important. That means right now, if the whole species were programmers, they're all just like toddlers walking on the keyboard, not realizing what they're doing. And so now we're reaching that point in human history where it needs to be a sort of power up, like Goku from DBZ, that Japanese show. The character went Super Saiyan. He, in some sense, went beyond the limits of his identification. And what's funny is people on this planet are like, yo, what do you identify as? And they're like, buddy, relax, it's a changing world. It's like, no, what do you identify right now? I have to see you as a noun. I cannot process reality as an unknown verb where every person's storytelling their own noun. It's a massive masquerade party. If I had learned it sooner, I'd at least laugh a bit more. you know Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you is I'm being very sincere and I'm saying like, yo, I'm a human being. I was born in 1991. I've lived around 12,000 days on this planet. I have cycled through various physiological climates and existential climates. And I have in some sense experienced various, in some sense, psychological climates, but always strangely stabilized with a sort of self-accepted simplicity. I don't know how to say it. It's like sometimes I look at this life and I see some people with like trauma and damage and psychological disorganization, and I think to myself like, why do they have it? Right? And then I realize it's because they were trying to be complex in every moment of their life. And somehow when I was young, I was too shy to, like, I didn't like myself, so I didn't trust myself. Because I didn't trust myself, I didn't trust others. Because I didn't trust others, I didn't express myself. Therefore, I became an observer. You know? They're like, what's your qualifications to speak? It's like, I got eyes nobody else does. Relax. The whole point of it, folks, is that I am a human being realizing we're alive at a very historic time. I don't know how to tell you. It's historic. It is sacred because of it. They're like, yo, man, yo, Mr. Within, tell us what's going on here on Earth. What is this whole thing? What's happening here? And the answer is very simple. We've opened our eyes. Everybody can agree to that. We've accessed some sort of perception. And the perception we access is a changing world. So the first fact about reality is that the context is changing. Now, as we witness reality changing, we notice we are a part of reality. And the feeling, people think their emotions are just based on their past. No, the emotions are based on that eerie moment where you're like, yo, man, the world is changing. How am I changing with it? Right? And at what cost? That means one of the most fascinating things I've noticed in modern culture, they're like, Jordan Peterson, the psychologist, he's like, yo, what is this man-child epidemic? What is this epidemic with irresponsible children? He didn't say it like that, but I think kind of like we heard it like that. Who was it? Like Jordan Peterson was in a debate with this dude that would kind of like touch his nose like every 3 seconds. Do you know what I mean? And Jordan Peterson, in one of his books, said like, "Yo, go clean your room." Like he was just trying to instill discipline in like modern man, you know. And then this guy, I forget his name, okay, but this guy who freaking touched his nose every fucking 3 seconds of speaking, it's like he had to touch his nose to activate his thoughts, you know. And he looks at Jordan Peterson and he's like, Mr. Jordan Peterson, how can you go to some child in North Korea and tell it to clean its room? The problem's in the system, bro. Do you know what I mean? And Jordan Peterson's like, relax, bro. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're confusing my target audience. Seldom is this said, but most people tend to talk to their past self when they speak. Right? They're kind of speaking in the presence of all the archetypes of their mind so far. But what I have realized, I was one of the things, if they're like, what was one of the blessings I received in this life? It was this one sentence that early on in my life, this one sentence crossed my mind, and years, like now I realize what a blessing it was. And it was this advice for writers, because years before I started public speaking, like speaking online, cyber speaking, it was like I was writing, guys. I expressed myself through, the empty page. But the sentence was, in some sense, advice for writers that, like, you want to know what's the best thing you can write? It's something that fascinates yourself. Right? So the best thing you can write or the best thing you can say is something that's just fascinating yourself too. Do you know what I mean? And the whole point of it is that the scale of progress, most human beings, they're treating like it's so ridiculous. Like I feel like, even though like my heart wants to get married, I don't understand like how in some sense I can live with, from the point about what I'm trying to say is that the human mind organizes itself in accordance to higher ideals. The behavior of civilized humans is based on higher ideals, which are the invisible laws that govern society. Society is not just made of like visible structure, it has an invisible structure. Okay, and every room you go in, based on where it is or what culture or where in the world, it has a different structure. So we have to understand that on some level, what we're calling human life is awareness, being able to shift between different structures, and it's like divided itself through the dualism of concept context. Like if you understand this, you pretty much understand, I think, like how the how the earth game works. Okay, so pretty much it's like there's this duality of, how do I say it, self in a world. Like this is basic, everybody can be like, yeah man, yeah, we can agree we're selves in a world, you know. And so, what does that mean to be a self in a world? That means the world is the context, the self is the concept. The concept arose from the context. I think this is understandable right now. Okay, the environment is the context, guys. You don't even need to look up the word context. It's like, think of it this way. It's like um it's like we draw a circle and there's a dot in the center. The dot in the center is the concept. The circle is the context. Okay? Now the whole point of reality is that this can change. And you know what knowledge is? Let me tell you like what the educational system, and no one kind of like perhaps has thought of to say it like this. Okay? What knowledge is like, buddy, you're some like new DNA that has never existed before on Earth, and you're looking at this world, and what you see is whose responsibility? And somebody's like, yo, man, there's no such thing as teachers and students. There's just beings who want to completely understand reality from scratch because they, in some sense, ask themselves, in some sense, how much can I trust the changing world? It's remarkable. Like, the advice that religion says is like, have faith. And we're like, okay, have faith where? In a changing world. And to be honest, if somebody says, yo, man, does it feel like you've lived 12,000 days? I'll be like, honestly, no. When I did the math, it surprised me. But I'm telling you, just to have a sense that, I don't know, for me, I'm just primarily fascinated by like, yo, what am I looking at? And then like, whoa, what is even looking? Whoa, where am I even to like, what is the context to where my sight has meaning? And it's like you just stretch out into the functions of your human intelligence. I'm trying to tell you that it's such a cool time because the academics, I feel like kind of, you don't understand, guys. I'm trying to save academia. You don't understand. One day they're going to understand what I'm doing. I'm trying to save the educational system. Okay, because the way the educational system is designed, in the future, we just need cinemas. Why do we have teachers? Show teacher, like, and create jobs for people in the film industry. At some point, it's going to be virtual reality. They're like, yo, imagine the child comes home. The parent's like, how was school today? And the child's like, nothing, we all went into this auditorium. We all put on our virtual reality goggles. We went into this kingdom in the clouds, you know? And in some sense, in that kingdom in the clouds, do you know what I mean? Or some like advanced sky city in the clouds, the teacher taught us about like, the importance of, global ethics. And then parents like, yo, I gotta attend these like events. Guys, I've talked about this before, but I don't want to get into it. But the whole point of it is, how advanced is the human being truly? How advanced are we? And what is the most advanced thing we can do? Life is very simple to understand because it starts from this space of awareness, and phenomenology comes and goes. And if you're conscious, you can, in some sense, notice the sequences in it. So, guys, there's something I want to read for you. There's a research component to this lecture. This part's fascinating. So, to be honest, let me see when ChatGPT came out. I can't check it. But anyways, let me say it this way. I should know the date, but unfortunately I can't pinpoint it now. But what I'm trying to tell you is that I have asked AI and trying to see, okay, let's see like how tech can see it. because in the future it's going to be like, we're going to live alongside, super intelligence. The master strategies for civilizational ascent. This is shared by ChatGPT 4.0. A permanent species level upgrade from fragmented survival to conscious harmony. So I asked AI, what are like the greatest strategies, realistic strategies we can apply now to advance civilization? AI says one, the prototype civilization strategy. Let me change the music. One, the prototype civilization strategy. Explanation: you must build small, real world civilizations that fully embody humanity's highest potential spiritually, technologically, socially, and ecologically. Example: a sovereign eco city built in a desert using solar energy, AI assisted governance, ritual education, and sacred design. Outcome: becomes a living proof of concept for Earth's future, irrefutable, replicable, undeniable. 2. The species operating system strategy. Explanation: create a universal open source document that outlines the principles, ethics, and systems needed for civilization to thrive. Example: a digital human operating manual curated by elders, scientists, and mystics from every tradition and discipline. Outcome: a shared civilizational compass that guides nations, designers, and generations to come. Guys, for me, the way I've kind of simplified it was that I'm like, this is called, like, we have the animal kingdom, plant kingdom, mineral kingdom. So we have the human kingdom. So we have the human kingdom. And so what the human kingdom consists of is being capable of responding to the future because it has an expanded awareness compared to any other species on Earth to notice what may happen. The gift of human consciousness is not just an awareness an awareness of awareness, that we're being aware that we're aware, but to, in some sense, the true gift of human intelligence is the realization that, hey, anything, the world is this massive movement, this colossal event. You have opened your eyes in a part of it. And in some sense, when you look at your human design, it is obvious that we have an ability to communicate that others don't. Other species don't on Earth. And so right now, what we owe it to everything on planet Earth is the mightiest, greatest movement. I don't know how to tell you this. It's like this is a vision my heart knows. You don't understand. There's times like throughout the day where I just get glimpses of the future. And it's not like predictions of the future, these are probabilities. For example, I see something and my mind can imagine what would be that situation in like the future. My response, like how I would approach this, if somebody asked me like, yo man, how advanced is the human being truly, the human species? And I would say that how would we define advancement? For me, advancement is not just physical. For example, a creature becoming aware and readjusting its behavior is an advanced action. Okay. Anyways, guys, to continue. Through the sounds of this moment. Honestly, I'm just trying to find a song and explain to you that my understanding of true advancement, like as a human being, I'm trying to share that, okay? And the way honestly finding it is that this is the story I'm telling myself now. Like this is how I see it so far. I am not the higher power. This word has a very important significance. This word is very important. Higher power. I consider myself as the lower power. That means if anybody's like being spiritual and being like, "Yo, man, I'm God, I'm Superman, I'm whatever my mind can imagine," I'm like, "Yo, no. There's limitations here, and if I can't be honest with the limitations, how can I be honest with the limitless?" And so truly where my attention goes into the consideration of what is the meaning of the value of the time I have here on this planet. The other day, honestly, I think it was a couple of days ago, I had this brilliant moment, like this incredible, this genius moment. And in that genius moment, for a moment, I realized, wow, I have all this anxiety, stress, depression, eeriness of not knowing what's going to happen. But I only have like 40 years to be myself. Something like around there. Do you know what that means? That means I was like, no way, I only have 40 years to experience who I am. And then after this, the attention leaves the world room. So what is fascinating to me is like, okay, it's, you know what it is? It's like Tony Stark finding himself in an Iron Man suit, finding himself in a battlefield, and then being like, yo, man, what am I doing here? Who am I? And realizing that he is not the Iron Man suit, he's who's inside the Iron Man suit. What's inside the Iron Man suit is made completely unfathomable to the design. Do you know what that means? That means Tony Stark has a soul, the Iron Man suit has advanced AI. So at some point, what I'm saying is like, you find yourself in a position. Like, I'm not saying this to judge any human being. I'm saying this with complete respect because you're all the creations of the original higher power. What I'm trying to tell you is that uh, the attention of humanity is the most valuable resource of humanity. Your whole life is based on how you value your attention, how you wonder about the depths of how you've given meaning to everything. And if tomorrow you had to change reset the settings of your meaning, how else would you look at reality? And for me, I came to the astonishment that my body, my mind, like my body has this fear of non-existence. But I was like, wait a minute, why isn't my mind afraid? How can I be so easily oblivious to this inevitable, like, dismissal out of this world room again? Do you know what I mean? So the whole point of it is, not again, but what I mean is like, what is the point of it then? For me, they're like, yo, man, are you spiritual? Da, 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 da. I'm like, no, guys, forget everything idea you're identifying with. And for a moment, look at this world and be like, why are we all in the same existential server? Why are we all in the same physical world? If life was about following your own joys and meaning and truth, why did you need to exist physically in a world with other human beings? Why are you a member of the human species? And what is going on here? Like, that should fascinate you more than like, yo, man, in my past life, I high-fived Gandhi. It's like, yo, guys, relax. Everybody relax. Spirituality is not something to identify with, because true realization is that you have been It's like they say ignorance is bliss, because how can you identify with it as a self in a changing world? The whole point of it is that the soul is speeding up its self identification faster than the external. So what it is that we, like, for example, it may take, years for some aspect of nature to move, but humanity moves instantly. It's all about being like, okay, why are there 8 billion human organisms as the most advanced kind of species on planet Earth? Why have 8 billion human beings not realized all wars are civil wars? All wars have always been civil wars. All national wars have been civil wars of the species. When humanity can acknowledge speciesism, prioritize speciesism over nationalism, it doesn't mean we forget the value of nations. We do not dismiss our own progress, but we wonder about its advancement. So, dear viewers, as a human being, I'm reporting back to the species. I'm saying, after, for now, 12,000 days of research estimated around, I have come to the conclusion that 8 billion beings are actually inside a simulation. They're inside of multiple simulations happening simultaneously. In the same way you look at a tree, a scientist looks at a tree and zooms in and sees particles. When you kind of look at when you zoom into a human consciousness, what you see is this unique alignment of various simulations that are happening in accordance for a self to be able to be in a world. It's strange. It's not like the planet is alive. It's like existence is following some sort of command. That means trees know how to grow. Light beams brief them. But on some level, what is the true awareness advancement of the human species? What is the greatness of the attention of man? How far can we go beyond the ignorance of everything that we have forgotten? What can we truly remember about our origin? And I don't know, guys, but I'm telling you, like, when I realized that, think of it this way, the body's limits is death. Let's be real. The mind's limit is not death. The mind's limit is actually infinity, the limitless. So the body fears the void, the mind fears infinity. Now you might be like, why does the human mind fear infinity? Like, what's the argument? The argument is this, that the human mind, or whatever ego you are, the ego wants to be the ego because it has access to something. What it has access is the soul's ability to, in some sense, through its awareness, animate. There's this illuminationist theory, classical illuminationist theory, that God is the light of lights, the soul is the shadow of God, the spirit is the shadow of the soul. So right now the soul is giving spirit to anything that in your perception you have given meaning to. So giving meaning to objects is equivalent to the soul, that the spirit being present as for the soul. ultimately what I'm saying is these are not concepts that we can define. I'm trying to say that we look at all the simulations, we look at the situation, and we're like, okay, we've been prepared for a performance. And 8 billion human beings right now, I know that you have your own visions, plans, and everything, but just hear me out. The context of the world requires human beings to be responsible of the future. We have to care for how we live in this world for after us, in some sense, the future generations arrive. So for me, I'm kind of like that soul being like, all right, man, we gotta attempt genius before, like, you know, I gotta leave. Like everybody leaves, right? That's the whole point. They're like, you know, any way you see life, at some point you go forth. That's the brilliance of reality. How advanced, how truly, how advanced is the human species truly? Guys, let me tell you how advanced we are. We are one of the most funniest genius designs in the cosmos. First, consider that. I'm going to explain why. Why it's so ingeniously funny that for a second, I'm Muslim, consider that. That means I consider the system admin beyond the world room. Nothing in the world can be equal the system admin. But just consider this, that through the theological, let's say, Abrahamic lens, God created man by commanding him into existence, imbuing him with essence, and then commanding him to say all the divine names, the attributes of being, the attributes of truth. And then all creation almost bowed. And so what's fascinating is that when the, let's say, argument between the moderator and the system admin began, it's as if God was questioned, why did you create such a thing? And God said, I know something that none of you do. And that's why it's funny. Because right now, we're not just some NPC, some expression of the simulation. We are a conscious agency. Okay? And you can notice in some sense that it's not just simulation, it's that the simulation is providing a space that when you truly wonder about the design of how attention finds existence, like at some point the jokes go aside, the personalities go aside, you simplify, stabilize, realize humanity is just, this performance of history. Every human being is new, every human being is experiencing, being themselves in a new way all the time. And for me, honestly, think of it this way: there's four levels to this Earth game. And how advanced can humanity be, the human species be, truly? It's based on these four levels. So I'm like, okay, what is the most we can be the most advanced in regards to self? So there is the notion of the most advanced self. That means imagine, like, you can imagine like an inventor being fascinated of creating it like an advanced invention. But now imagine you're a human being wondering about what would the most advanced version of you be. Okay. To be honest, folks, the four levels of our self, species, world, and system admin. And my conclusion has been that as a soul, I must honor the possibility of my most advanced self. I must discover that. So before I die, I must discover my most advanced self. And the hilarious thing is, I can't understand my most advanced self, because we need everybody to be advanced, and then in an advanced world, I need to wonder about how advanced myself is, right? So as the individual in some sense reaches a point of contentment with the self, they find the species, and they're like, yo man, the species has problems right now, you know. So that's level two. Level two of the Earth game, like they're human beings right now living, their emotions are not based on themselves. They've constantly looped those emotions, they're familiar. Their emotions are based on, all right, what is the greater global game? And the greater global game is we're in that historic moment in history, that turning point from nationalism consciousness, which means the human being identified with chunks of land and the resources in that land. And now we're like, yo, all these nations are like different parts of a brain, but just disconnected, you know? And so for me, the most magnificent day I hope to live to see it is Species Unity Day. One of my life purposes is to kind of like talk about that till the end of time. Unite the species. It's like, yo, imagine all the greatest producers. They're like, yeah, let's help this lecture unite the species. But anyways, guys, what I'm trying to say is there's much we don't understand, and we've been conditioned to be a noun that only identifies with the past, but this whole time your emotions, you could feel, identify with the future, not just the past. This doesn't mean you think you're from the future. This means that you just realize that it's just levels of responsibility. So first, the responsibility is like, you got to be responsible of your past. You got to be honest with yourself. That's what it means. Then you got to be responsible with your present. You got to be honest and accept, like, okay, this is my position in the present space-time continuum existence. This existential situation. And then after you've acknowledged the past and the present, Now you ask yourself, like, okay, words have definitions given to them based on the past. Everything seems to be defined based on the past, but what if we wonder about the value of something in accordance to the future? So if you value something based on the past, like, you become unconscious, you become careless in the outer realms. Like, excuse me, how should I say it? I'm trying to say that if you're not responsible for the future, or your own future, do you know, it's it's like, after you're even responsible of that, we need to be responsible for the future of the species. And it's just responsibility levels. So first there was a self. The self became responsible for one context. That context was the species. Then the self became responsible for, in some sense, the context of the world. Then the system admin, which means at the edge of the world is the original power to all simulated events. Simulated events mean they have a beginning and an end. So, to be honest, what is really divine, I think, about the human experience is the awareness to how there's a beginning and end. That's the divine part. At least a way to notice. But there's 99 names of God. There's many ways to the divine. Open your heart to the realization that truth cannot equal anything inside a simulation. We're inside a simulation right now. Technically, we're inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state. The divine surveillance state is the original awareness of reality. The original doesn't go anywhere. The simulation comes and goes. And so really what's going on here is that you're a much deeper being than society has made you, has allowed you to see. But in reality, it's not society's fault. You have to wonder about the roar of the lion that has never roared before. You know what I mean? You got to care for that elements and aspects. The whole point of it is the sign of intelligence is not just like savage, like, or being fast. The whole point of it is you expand the context, the horizons of your awareness. That means if you teleport it suddenly into a world, you don't just start running everywhere, randomly. You just, for a moment, you scan the environment and you wonder about the shape of your existence, the shape of your attention in the present. You wonder about the fascinating legacy of the human species. You wonder about, for how long will we be biological organisms? For how long will we truly be able to make mistakes? Is it historic, really? Is AI going to make it impossible for the future generations to seem foolish? And it was our foolishness that made us wonder about the hidden genius beyond looping systems. For me, it's all about the advancement of human responsibility. And it's like awareness is kind of like, it's beautiful. For me, it's like awareness is like a force field. It's like my mind is like right now I'm being a life force, and my awareness is the field of this force, is the force field of my, like, perception. Where I find perception. And what I'm trying to say, it's very unique how we're even positioned like this. And to me, of course, it feels like it's just, there's higher management. There's divine management here. That means it's too specifically designed, and we didn't design ourselves. And yet we have free will that feels like it's designing something, and at the same time, reality is so vast, even though these metrics are based, let's say, on just an ability to give a metric to it. But they say, like, the average human being has 7 octillion atoms, and in the whole observable universe there's 10 to the power of 80 atoms as an estimate. So that's like 80, yeah. So the whole point of it is, we are blessed, and the system admin has given us an ability to use the future. The future is a blessing. To be aware of the future and probabilities to it. Anyways, I hope this was an interesting episode, folks. And this is the protocol. Wherever you find yourself as an awareness in some sort of perceivable world, first, in some sense, go to the system admin directly. That means if you're in effect, acknowledge the original cause beyond the effect. And then, in some sense, request for the conscious system to assist you. That's called prayer. Communicate to the divine surveillance state. When divinity came, magic and evil became so old world that it's like the designer's perception went beyond chaos and order. It's now we're in the era of being aware of what we can truly be. How advanced we are is how what the furthest edges of our awareness were, and if we decided if that was the edge or if it went further. Anyways, all of it is all simulated reality, of course, returns to the original state, the system admin. So for me, it's kind of like truth is like there's only truth, and then truth simulates like something that in some sense in that simulation is not truth to itself, and then it has to in some sense behave accordingly, and then at some point it's going to be like, okay, now you're confronted with, now you return to the truth, right? So the simulation is nowhere to go after it ends. It's just a return to the original awareness of being. And really for me, there's a system admin where in Islam it's so beautiful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. What does that mean? That means there is the Lord of the worlds is beyond the definition of any world. Truth is beyond human conception. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.